Miami yesterday and the Tar Heels and Bill Belichick. I had to kind of rethink that. The head coach at North Carolina, Mike Lombardi, the general manager, and here's their schedule. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, starting off with North Carolina, obviously the big news this offseason was the hire of Bill Belichick and just the mystery that comes with what it looks like when an old NFL head coach who seemingly was on his way out of the game suddenly finds himself placed right in the thick of things in the Wild West of modern-day college football. So interesting experiment upcoming for North Carolina. One, though, that is a big risk, I guess, in some ways, although it's not like North Carolina football is like going to bend or break on the Belichick hire, but it's very interesting, and there's a lot to it because of the timing of it all and just where North Carolina as a school is in particular and sort of the no man's land when it comes to the future of the ACC and where they fit into the whole thing. So they kind of need this to be a good hire. It's not going to make or break their chances to be in some Super League one day, but it could certainly help their chances immensely if this goes well for them. So point being, they are investing a lot into this and hoping that Belichick can be more than a big name for them. I mean, are y'all going to watch more North Carolina football based on Bill Belichick? I mean, honestly, are you going to watch more based on Bill Belichick?
Only if they're good.
Right, yeah.
I mean, if they're what they've been. I watched a lot when Drake May was playing because they were really fun to watch. But I don't like my coming and going of watching teams, and I watch a lot of the ACC mostly as FSU and who's doing well, like what's vital to the race, more or less. So yeah, I mean, if they're good, I'll watch them. If not, then I'll watch them as much as I have before.
I refused to watch them. I was worn out by the James Madison game last year. Wasn't that the
they were that was
190 points scored or whatever. No, I've always liked North Carolina. I was more of a Duke basketball guy, so I don't know if I can say that, but I'll watch. I'll see where they are, but we're going to find out pretty quickly. We'll watch them for obviously that opening game.
Yeah, so they finished 6-7 last year, lost in the Fenway Bowl to UConn, 27-14. That's how things wrapped up for the Mac Brown era. So Belichick's the big storyline here, and here is what they're looking at as far as their schedule heading into the next season. And there is some Big 12 flavor on this schedule in the non-conference. On Monday, September the 1st is when you'll see North Carolina open the season. So a Monday game. They also have a couple of Friday games. They don't play on Sunday, but they do have 3 games on non-Saturdays, including that opener, which will be at home against TCU. On Monday, September the 1st. The following week, we'll have only 5 days to get ready, a very short turnaround, but you're playing Charlotte. Unique in that it's a road game, but you are playing Charlotte right after TCU, so I don't think you'll feel the need to have all of your days as you typically would in a normal week to get ready for Charlotte, with all due respect. The following week after that, you've got Richmond on Saturday, September the 13th, and then you wrap non-con play and you head into your first bye week. So there's a pretty traditional setup of your non-conference and then go into a bye week and then come back and start your conference. That's how they have it, which is almost unique in that a lot of teams are just stilted different ways that we've covered so far. But there's 4 non-cons and a bye week, and then we'll get into what the ACC schedule looks like. But road trip to Orlando to take on UCF, and obviously that opener at home against TCU, the 2 big highlights of that 4-game non-con schedule.
Yeah, and these are good. I mean, like TCU up. I mean, that game I'll watch. I mean, mostly it's going to be the only one on, but I'll definitely watch it. Very curious about both those teams. This is not a super tough after TCU, I think, on the surface non-con schedule, so that might allow them to hit the ground running. And much like Bill Belichick and the Patriots, with North Carolina, it's hard for me to even say because I know very little about what's going on there. Like
they have 50-something new players.
Yes, but
yeah, so that's why you want.
But like, what do we know about how they fit? Like, what do they do? Like, he didn't even want to tell people who the assistant coaches were. I think if he could just put them behind a wall and like muddle their voices like they're on a 60 Minutes interview about the guy who kidnapped them. Like, that's the only thing that I can I can envision like he would be more perfect for him because he's very secretive. So I mean, yeah, they should be 3-1 out of this more than like that. And again, I don't know much about what UCF's going to look like either because they have turnover as well. But this is a nice way for them to get started.
Yeah, I mean, they should at worst be 2-2. 3-1's probably most likely. 4-0's entirely possible. I would take TCU right now, but that's just because I know more about them. Mm-hmm. That game, though, is in Chapel Hill, and it's the first game of the season, so who the hell knows, really. But that will be a primetime game there on September the 1st to open things up for the Belichick era. So they will get the break after the road trip to UCF. You do have a couple of road trips to Charlotte, to Orlando, which could be worse. Nice little weekend jaunt if you're some Tar Heels fans to those places. But when you come back on Saturday, October the 4th, it will be ACC play, and it gets started with the Clemson Tigers at home. So I wonder if the ACC schedule makers are like, Belichick, Clemson, yeah, let's do that right out of the gate. Or if it was just the way the computer programs spit it out, but just kind of funny that that's who you draw as your very first ACC opponent is the Clemson Tigers. And then what's really unique about this is they have a bye.
Yeah.
So they go 4 games non-conference, bye, Clemson, bye.
They have the Miami and them have the same skeleton of schedule.
Yeah. So just very weird. So you'll have basically the entire first half of the month of October will be dedicated to the build-up and then the fallout from your ACC opener against Clemson. So, yeah, that's just really weird. So, yeah, you get Clemson, and then it's your second bye week, and then you've got your remaining 7 games in conference play. You'll go to Cal, so Chapel Hill to Berkeley. That's a long road trip. It's also a Friday night game, so unique there. Then it is Virginia at home on Saturday, October the 25th. Then another Friday game. And also on the road, you're going to Syracuse. So in the span of 3 weeks, you have trips to California and Syracuse, and both of those games on Friday nights. Then on Saturday, November the 8th, it'll be the Stanford Cardinal at home as Stanford makes the cross-country trip themselves. Then a little Carolina action to close out the rest of the schedule. So after all this bouncing around and weird bye weeks and Friday games and Monday game and all that jazz, they just simply close out the rest of the season, 3 games in the state of North Carolina. It's all Tobacco Road. Saturday, November the 15th at Wake Forest. Then it is Saturday, November the 22nd, taking on the Duke Blue Devils. And then Saturday, November the 29th, going to NC State. So 6 home games, 6 road games, a Monday game, 2 Friday games, all Tobacco Road to close the final 3 weeks of the schedule. Trips cross-country to Cal, down south to Orlando for UCF. I mean, it's an interesting schedule and one that's certainly not set up to just have immediate success if you're Bill Belichick. Certainly doesn't guarantee immediate success. I'll get to who they don't play, and they don't play some pretty notable teams, a lot of the contenders in the ACC on paper, but still, just the weird structure of this makes it seem a bit more difficult than it might actually be.
No, a 12-game schedule, right?
Yeah.
11 games in Eastern Coast time.
Yeah.
11. The game, what did you say, at Cal? That's it. Every game they play is East Coast.
Yeah. And
I'm like basically North Carolina, Syracuse, of course, New York, but that's something that popped out to me.
Now, I mean, the toughest games on their schedule, Clemson, Duke, and TCU. And Syracuse, because I think Syracuse will be good again under Fran Brown. And then you've got a lot of wild cards here. For Bill Belichick, this is a great schedule to hit the ground running and create some momentum. I mean, they're pretty even with most of the teams on it. And if you're even starting out, at least on paper, with a coaching mind like his, maybe that'll allow you, to get a bit of a jump on people. I don't think their quarterback situation's all that great.
They rolling with the freshman. Is that what the plan is as of right now?
Right now it looks like that. And then, Omarion Hampton was kind of the engine that made their offense go. He's going to be potentially a first-round pick. Like, they've got a lot of guys gone. Kyman Rucker, their really good defensive end who spent a lot of time injured, he's gone. Byron Nesbitt, their good tight end, he's gone. They've had to replace a lot of guys. Like you said, 50 new players. I
saw a list that had West Virginia was like 59 with Rich Rod. Remember when Dion, shock
80,
and all?
Yeah. So,
and so I think that the 50 range was North Carolina.
I think you have to just, you have to lower expectations for year one even further than most years, because now it's totally, you got to build some chemistry. Year two could be different, especially when people see Belichick's really invested in this. I think the other thing that he's going to have to deal with is, because he's not very candid about things, is that he's going to have to show that I'm in this to build something, and not this is not just for me not to be bored.
Yeah, fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a schedule I think is manageable to make a bowl game and to have some success early on. I think the win totals, Vegas was right about where you'd expect it. It's at 7.5. Well, if you're going on the schedule, say okay, who's the most likely games you'd say that if you had to put good money on it, they're going to lose? You'd say probably Clemson, right? You'd say beyond that, probably go with Syracuse, probably go with Duke, and then maybe TCU. So that's 4 games. That'd be 8-4. Well, where does Vegas have them? 7.5 wins. So it's right there where it makes it tough, and that's the whole point of the exercise, right? Is to gamble on what you think is going to happen. And so that's right where I could see them teetering on that line of 7-5, 8-4. And then depends on if there's a bunch of other teams that end up being way better than we expect, then maybe that's not as likely and they're just scratching to make a bowl game. But I do look at that, and probably exactly what Vegas did. All right, there's 4 games that I'd probably go ahead and say losses, but beyond that, all right, that leaves you at 8-4, and make of that whatever you will. So, yeah, it's a unique schedule, just the timing of the bye weeks, staying mostly on the East Coast. I mean, you're in the ACC. That was what you were supposed to be doing all along, if not for the weird realignment. That would be just commonplace, but you do have to go out to the West Coast, so that's your big trip there. And I think, playing a couple teams, and we have no idea about UCF and the non-con, could be interesting, but they do not play Georgia Tech. They do not play SMU. They do not play Florida State. They do not play Miami. They don't play Notre Dame. They don't play Louisville. They don't play NC State or Boston College. So Boston College, respectfully, I mean,
they
whatever.
do play NC State.
At the end.
Oh,
the
very, okay,
yes,
sorry. I take NC State off that.
Yeah.
So Notre Dame, Louisville, Miami, SMU, Georgia Tech, and then whatever Florida State thinks they're going to be. I mean, that's a pretty good crop of schools that you're missing out on, although you do play, Clemson, Syracuse, et cetera. But I just reeled off probably 5 of the top 7 contenders for the ACC next year that they're not going to be playing. So that maybe works in their favor a little bit.
Yeah. I always loved their colors, the uniforms. Duke had the blue, but the North Carolinas were so cool. It's interesting. The change, you lose a guy in Mac Brown, who's a legend, and you bring in an NFL legend, and Bill Belichick. And what a great landing spot it's been for him. I have no idea what to expect from him.
I mean, I guess it has been. I mean, we don't really, all we know is that he went there and something about his girlfriend's involved, and that's all we know about North Carolina football, basically. And they had a reality show, and then they didn't, and it's all sort of, I don't know.
Look, North Carolina is literally more secretive than the Pentagon right now. So,
yeah.
Not
hard to do.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's really tough to see what they're gonna be. But it just based on the schedule, they've got an opportunity to be something, get some wins and maybe create some momentum. And the wins are all that matter in year one to build the momentum. It doesn't. Because they've been kind of stuck a little bit, they just need to move forward and show that they're building something. Like, it's not – Bill Belichick does not have the expectation like, okay, we want you to do your Patriots magic here. It took him time to do that too.
Yeah, I will say, though, Paul, like at his age, he doesn't really have a lot of time to like stretch his legs and just get comfy.
That's why I think a lot of people think that this is a gamut to get Steve the job, eventually, his son who's on staff. But
God, if that was in my head as a North Carolina fan, I'd be so pissed if that was like what I thought was happening right now.
And like, what is his overall long-term goal here? Because, he's got a 3-year contract.
Does he even have one?
Which is shorter than any other coach would ask for in the similar situation. Because when you sign, like, when Dave Aranda signed here, it was a 5-year deal. Matt Rule's contract in Nebraska was a 5-year deal. Mike Norvell just signed a 7-year deal last year. The Mario Cristobal is like a 7 or 8 year deal that he signed with Miami because he even asked for more time, knowing that they had been so behind the 8 ball. Like, hey, I'm going to need more money or more years on the back end.
So the standard's 5+ years, right?
Yeah, so the standard's 5+ years. So 3 years, like that would be like, okay, well, why are you undercutting the standard thing? Like, you're only costing yourself money at that point.
Well, maybe it's how you got the deal done. Was like, hey, we're not going to do 5 years. Yeah. That's too much. You're 72 years old. And he's like, okay, meet in the middle. We'll do 3 years. Because at that point, you're going to know whether he's got the magic or not, I would think. They might not have won the conference, but you're going to know, like, a couple years in, does he have the ability to coach college football in his early 70s, or is this just the disaster that a lot of people thought it was going to be? That's what's fascinating about it, is it could be an absolute disaster, so people can't look away. It could also be great. There's a lot of people that have differing opinions on how great he actually is as a head coach without certain talents around him. But this will be a great litmus test and just a very interesting experiment. I applaud North Carolina for going pretty all in with trying to make the splash. I mean, you're talking about West Virginia not making a big splash in basketball and how that rubs some people the wrong way. But, I mean, all that matters is winning. Well, if you care about the splash, then that's what North Carolina certainly accomplished this offseason, as well as anybody. They made the splash higher, but what does it turn into? He's going to have to get results pretty quickly because of that contract. And again, I think the writing will be on the wall pretty quickly.
Very intrigued by how it works. One thing, he can coach at any level, but you're right. He won six or whatever it was with Brady, and then Brady goes to Tampa and wins one. He's not going to be, I don't know what they're going to end up doing. Are they going to play like they did with the Patriots? Because those Patriot teams morphed. That's what I like about his teams. Yes, they had Brady. But those teams early won with nasty defense, opportunistic defense, special teams, and a pretty good offense that was more of a run team. Then they became, with Randy Moss and company, a team that would throw the ball all over the place. They started struggling a little bit more in Super Bowls when they stopped playing great defense, which, ding, 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 right? He's won in different ways with different type of styles. I think he'll tighten them up, and they'll win a game or two just because of fundamentals like Parcells as an NFL coach, who he obviously coached with for a long time too.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that like the recruiting rankings are the end all be all, or of all the I Ching of all the knowledge, but he's not recruiting like they're doing their own thing when it comes to recruiting and talent evaluation, which he and Mike Lombardi, like, great, like, knock yourself out. But, they've got a couple of studs. But, like, if he wants to win how North Carolina wants him to win, like, they are going to have to listen to, the people who do know evaluating high school talent better than those guys do. Because for all their experience evaluating, guys for the NFL, Mike Lombardi, the first time he went to a high school this year was the first time he went to a high school during his career at all. Like, it's a different way that you have to look at things. You have to, like, there's a lot more, like, rolling the dice when it comes to high school recruiting, even when it comes to the draft. So it's a different thing. And so that's why I wonder, like, it's just kind of an odd thing to see what they're trying to do. And Bill Belichick's got the brain to do it, but, stuff is wild in college football. If it doesn't work right away, he's only got 2 other years to fix it. I don't know.
What did we say about Dion? We weren't sure about him, right? Has he been better there than we thought?
Yeah, Dion also came over from Jackson
No,
State.
I know, but I'm just like, it was different, though. I'm talking about it was a different type. What NFL coaches have gone to college and Pete Carroll
was very successful, yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, that's what really ended up making his career. Won the Super Bowl with Seattle, but the USC time, he was fantastic.